Thanks for listening to Fluff and Crunch, where we talk about the connection and sometimes disconnect between system, setting, and story in tabletop RPGs. And there we are. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Jeremy.
All right. Well, we can dispense with the whole gaming thing because we've done none of it.
No, and I'm not even gaming tonight. We were meant to be gaming tonight, and then first Scott said he couldn't do it, and now Brian said it. We were actually going to use what we're going to talk about today for me and Brian to replace Scott, because we were like, right, we don't need you, and now he can't make it.
You know what? Now what you can do is you can just replace both your friends.
Yeah, well, I could just not. Just
How tragic.
spend time with my family.
That's probably
fair.
better.
They're not going to be back till later, and then I'm going to see them solidly for the next 2 weeks anyway. So.
Yeah, that's going to be super fun. We'll get to that at the end though, as your send off. Yeah, I had a good couple of days. I now have a 16-year-old.
Happy birthday.
They just keep getting older. Like you feed them, and they just keep getting older. So
yeah, that's what happens.
That is what happens. So anyway, so we actually, the only gaming-ish that I've done in the last several days is I've been continuing to work on my game, and I'm actually, remind me, I want to bounce some ideas off you at the end of this. Probably not a recorded portion to keep the anticipation high. But yeah, I've been working on that. So anyway. But yeah, obviously, looking at our backgrounds, what is it we're here to talk about today?
We're talking about the inevitable destruction of the human race by robots. Oh, no, wait a minute. That's not quite right, is it?
Only if the AIs build robots or the AI builds a robot. I actually don't think it'll be the destruction of the human race. I think it will be the subjugation of the human race and the crushing of the human spirit by the people who program these things.
I think the Matrix is probably better. Why destroy the human race when you can use them as batteries?
Right.
That was a better one. Yeah, they kill the whole human. There's probably uses. This is kind of like a revenge thing. That doesn't really.
Right.
That's not very AI to make revenge. Although Hal did it.
That's right.
So, yeah, we're gonna talk about our initial forays and ideas and theories of AI in role playing games.
Yeah, in anything related to gaming, to role playing games.
Should we start with art, because we've both done that.
Yeah. That sounds a little naughty.
Let's get the first thing out of the way. There's a lot of, when it came out initially, there was a lot of, oh, this is really good, this is brilliant, and then it very, very quickly has gone very anti to the debate. Now whenever I see people posting like AI art on Facebook groups, it's them getting torn down, or people posting straight away saying, look, I know that people are so. No one is saying that AI should replace genuine artists, and taking someone's existing art and throwing that into an art thing so it takes their art but then alters it so you don't have to pay that person.
That's lame.
That's dodgy. Okay, that's not great. And obviously, using that in published stuff is kind of a no-no. But we're both GMs, and the reality is there are times when you want a picture of something and that picture doesn't exist. And the amount, if we were going to spend, we're not talking about for our products. So let's forget about the for our product stuff. This is more like you're a GM and you want a picture of someone, or you want a picture of a location, and you look online and there's tons of art there. I mean, I spend lots of time on Pinterest trying to find cool art that I can use for role playing games, but you can't always find what you want. And previously that meant you just had to kind of go, well, this is kind of what it looks like, or you just have to explain it and you don't have any art for it. Theoretically, AI could mean you type in exactly what you want and it can generate you an image. That sounds great. That's if that's the theory, that's super useful to be able to, if you've got a party of people and they can't all afford to spend a fortune on paying an artist to do their characters, particularly for something like a one shot. If you're playing a 20-year campaign and you want to pay an artist to design your character, that's completely different. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, wouldn't it be cool if you could just put this thing in and something knocks up some art? Brilliant. There you go. In the time scale we're talking about, no real living artist could do that anyway.
And here's my take on the AI art thing, is that art okay, there's so many different layers to this. You know, you could talk about quality of art. You could talk about the
Yeah,
fact
that's what
that
we'll get
art
onto.
has, up until this point in human history, represented human ideas, the human spirit, condition, blah blah blah, all those kinds of things, and that a machine doing it in place of a person is inherently like it undercuts the point of what is the point of using art as a means of expression. Okay, what I'm putting aside all of that, I can't draw.
Yeah,
And it's funny because I've had art teachers over the years say, well, just draw what you see. That's what I'm trying to do. And my wife, who's the eternal optimist that like, she doesn't think that anyone can learn anything, but she has a highly optimistic view of you know, anyone, almost anyone can do almost anything. I am a little more dim on that, that notion. And so yeah, I can't draw.
ditto.
And you're right. I have folders. Actually, I have a folder on my computer for gaming, and then it's because I try to be very organized in this. It's broken down by genre, the subfolders by genre, and then within each major uh, genre folder, like fantasy, horror, modern, sci-fi, supers, whatever, there is an art folder, and that is outside of any system or anything like that. Like in my fantasy folder, I have D&D, I have Pathfinder, I have Conan, you know, and on from there. But then sitting alongside those folders is an art folder. And then I have my art folder subdivided down into like scenery, people, things like that. And so I do the same thing you do. You know, I'm poking around online, or I see a picture. I'm like, oh my gosh. And usually for me, it's like the inspiring vista, you know, some amazing view of like a waterfall or a canyon or some kind of crazy cloud formation or something like that. And I just save those for use. At some point, I might find use for this picture or this piece of art, but I have no intention of using it commercially, nor of putting it on anything that I would say was my creation or that I would use for a commercial purpose. So I'm okay with, you know, right click, save as on art on a that I find online. Um, but you're right. There are those times where you don't come up with the picture you want, and you really have an idea for an image. So I could see where there's value in having a means by which, you know, Cro-Mags like me who can't draw say, okay, I'm here, I need an adventure, and so on and so forth. And then the thing spits out something, and you're like, yeah, that looks kind of close to it. Now, I have spent probably all of 10 or 15 minutes puttering with AI art generators. So I am not the person to talk to about this, but I am going to putter some more. But yeah, so I can see value in that. Um, I think for any kind of commercial pursuit, there's a whole nother set of questions. As a matter of fact, you know, 2D Modifius said in the 2D20 World Builders program, you can't use AI art.
Yeah.
They just said flat out, they're drawing a line in the sand to support real live human artists. So, okay. Um, so aside from art, as in say like portraits or scenes, or maybe items, things like that, what else could you use an AI art generator for a tabletop game? What do you think?
I mean, I think that's, to be honest, portraits is one of the main things to be able to show.
Yeah.
Not like I said, not so much for PCs, but be able to show NPCs and that they look different. I think, and then locations. I think those are the two. I mean, those are the two main things that, as a GM, that's what I want art for. You know, I want to be able to show an area or an NPC or something else. Monsters, I don't need to. Monsters, I have books for that,
Yeah,
and
you
then the
do.
books have art in. If I'm playing Star Trek, I have pictures of the ships. You know, this is mostly, rather than just having to describe the thing, it's handy to be able to, this is what the guy looks like. This is what the thing I'm trying to describe to you looks like. And like you said,
Yeah.
I'm not an artist. So I think those two things are like 100%
You know,
the
I
main
could
thing I would
see,
use.
and I suppose you could say that this is like an early version of, you know, a type of, if AI art is some kind of graphics that either appear as pictures, appear as photorealistic or not, okay, that are created by software, if that's AI art, then like random dungeon map generators that have been around for years, that's a really early form of AI art. isn't it? Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, actually,
Uh,
that's bizarrely, that's the other thing that people have been, I've done that myself,
yeah.
is generate those kind of things. And so, yeah, it is art. It's just a very specific kind of art.
Yeah, and it's very rudimentary. Like for example, the adventure that I wrote for Modiphius for Octone Cthulhu, I had a vision for a village and I kept trying to draw it, and I was just going to take a picture of it because some of the maps, the area maps that I included for them that they're going to make good looking maps out of, I drew and then took a picture of, and I sent that along. And there was one that it continued to look like crap. And so I found this online a village generator, and I kept changing the parameters until I got something that said, yeah, that's what I want. And I provided that to them as an idea. I said, this is what I've been trying to draw. This is the idea that I have. Riff on it, you know. So yeah, maps, say dungeons, locations, and I do wonder how the more robust, the real live, these AI art generators, I wonder how those would go because the only thing that I've seen spit out of those, and me that is portraits and it's scenery. I haven't
Yeah.
seen someone try to explain to some art generator, build me a 10-room dungeon with blah 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 dot 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 and so on and so forth. I think that'd be interesting. Like make a map or
Yeah,
a
I think
continent map or a regional map.
it definitely is a bit ropey when you start trying to do. Well, I mean,
Are
I've
you
seen
are you putzing with it right now with one
I
of
was
them right
trying
now?
to, but then the command prompt I typed in, I was using Midjourney, but you only have so many freebies on
Yeah.
Midjourney. So now I'm trying to find the prompt that I typed in to type in somewhere else. Well, I'm going to just share my screen just to let's go.
Go for it.
I want to talk about the good stuff. Let's share screen. There we go. No, you're going to have to enable it.
Let's see. Make co-host. There we go. Make co-host. You're the co-host now. All right,
I
share
can do
that
it.
screen. Let's see. This would actually be really useful.
So this isn't stuff. This is just stuff that other people are doing. But
Yeah.
like some of this stuff, like this cyberpunk stuff, this is amazing. And there was someone a minute ago was doing some dark.
Real quick, I was invited to join that, and well, frankly, I really didn't sink a whole lot of time into figuring out how to use it. How do you use it?
So I think when you join Midjourney, you only get so many freebie like goes at it, and also then it's dictated by like what you put in and how many times you redo it and stuff.
Yeah.
The idea is it's an actual decent prompt because there was someone who put this dark elf thing in, and now this is the trouble. Is like actually you could just go on and look at what other people have done, and you'd probably find some good stuff.
But how do you actually make it do the thing?
Oh, here we go. So what you type in is you type in /imagine, and then, for example, this is the prompt. So a D&D elven archer with dark skin, soldier, archer, marksman. His hair is unevenly cut, jagged, as if she'll bite.
So
wait, these things.
So you just go into one of these. Well, I'm such a Discord idiot. Is that a channel or is that?
I mean, one of the I think they're the channels. Yeah. So one of these things on the left where it says newbie room.
You go into one of the threads and you type exactly what.
So you do. It says at the very top. I could just see it. Type /imagine, then describe what you want, and then you have to kind of wait because everybody else's stuff is posting up as well as yours, and then so you kind of have to look for when it gets an alert to yours. But already this stuff here is like better than what I've done in the past. Like I've tried this in the past where you get genuinely just terrible stuff.
So and wait, I think real quick, the U1, 2, 3, 4. What do those do for you on Midjourney?
Yeah, so that's where I'd have to go into the stuff. Off the top of my head, I think what the U ones I think does. One of them does an upscaled version of one. So you like, well, because he always gives you 4. The standard for Midjourney is 4, and then you're saying I want a bigger version of the main one, and then you're going to download that because obviously these are tiny.
Yeah.
V I think is variant, so it will take the one that was quite close to what you wanted, and it will give you a couple of variants.
So it takes that image, and it sounds to me like the system then is taking your original description and reapplying it to that image and treating it as this is closer to the mark, and then it's spitting out more things. Okay.
Now I'm impressed to actually look at some of these because these ones, because I'm looking at these elf things thinking, right, well, whenever I've done things where it goes wrong most is weapons. Like faces, it's fine. Look at it. That's usually good. But But even then, actually, if you notice, it says a quiver of sleek arrows. We look at this, like, those aren't arrows. These look like plant things growing out of it. It's very, very bad at weapons.
Interesting.
And I think it's a lot of time, because what it's doing is it's looking at art that matches what you say.
Sure.
And then it is taking that and doing things to it. Now, the problem is that then it can't always distinguish between what certain things are in the picture. I mean, these will get by with time. So you end up with these things where, like, what you want a sword, and that sword is just, it doesn't look like any sword you've ever seen at all. But also, one of these you'll notice is that some of these are people retaking it and they're redoing it again and again.
Yeah.
So obviously it gets better with time. And then some of them you find huge amounts of people putting descriptions into them.
When you do the variant, do you know if you can add more descriptors?
I don't know once you've started. I also
Okay.
just realized I don't know how to come out of the. How do I come
Yeah,
out of
and
the
folks,
screen?
I was about to say, if you're listening, which is kind of a silly thing to say, for those listening, please weigh in. If you have, I mean, Midjourney seems to be really popular. If you have other sites for art generation, share it, share your experiences. I mean, because we have two lines of discussion here. We have, what do we think about this as a thing, and how might we use it? And then, I mean, whether we should use it or not is sitting under the heading of it as a thing. But we have two strands of discussion. I think it'd be worth engaging in both. So if you know more sites, or you have more details about how to use this Midjourney thing, please share it.
How do I stop sharing my screen?
You go up to the top.
I know, but I haven't got it. It's put it in a little picture-in-picture thing. I genuinely can't work it out. Oh, thank goodness you've done it. Well done.
I fired you.
I was going to just type something else into a different thing.
Yeah.
So again, because what I've always, because that was a bunch of examples of really good stuff. Something I learned very, very quickly is you have to know what you're doing, and type the right things in. And the more description you get, the better you'll get out. And then it's one of those things you actually learn to do it.
Yeah.
Because when I've done it in the past, all I've ever got is just rubbish. Sure. And certain things work better than other things. And I've never got anything good out of it. I've never got anything usable out of it myself. So looking now, because other people are getting things out of it. But then you do have to start paying for it. So like Midjourney, you end up having to subscribe after you've done your trial ones. You have to subscribe, and it's not cheap. It's like, I know, $10 a month or something. Now, if you're going to use it loads and can use it, that might be good, but that's the more than I'm prepared to pay when I can just search on the internet or go on Pinterest and find something close to what I want. I mean, like, portraits is easy. There are so many people doing portrait art that's not usually an issue. It's more like locations, fantasy locations is difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I mean, it's not just this thing that you can magically click on and it produces you what you want. This is still a technology, obviously, that's in development, and but it also requires skill and experience on our behalf. So again, to folks listening, if you have that or you think you have it, go ahead and share it. Okay, so you have AI art and these art generators. What about these chat things that give some people the creeps? And maybe for good reason. You just recently used one of those chat, but which, by the way, I haven't touched. I have puttered with some AI art sites, but the chat whatever things I have not touched. And it's not because I'm like, oh my gosh, my soul's gonna get devoured, or I'm something like that. I have other things that I've had to do, and I haven't set aside the time to find that and do that.
All right, just pause. Before we move on to that bit, I'm gonna share my screen again. I'm gonna show you what I just did on another thing to show you what happens when it goes wrong.
Okay.
Because this is worth seeing.
What?
So I typed in a big scary orc holding a metal sword riding a giant grey wolf. I put, he is scarred, and there are snow-capped mountains in the background. Now, if you look at the backgrounds,
I like the background.
The backgrounds are spot on. These backgrounds are amazing. Look at the mess of the. I mean, this top left
Those are
one.
Awesome.
I mean, I can't even work out what that one is. This one, like, again, he is merged into the thing. This one at least maybe, but look at the
Oh,
legs on it. So this bottom left one is maybe, but does he have legs?
can't tell.
But so these are all just good examples of ones that have just gone, this is what happens. And this is me like that. This is an example in the back. So I did Arabian female archer with bow, hunting, dark hair in desert, fantasy art. And I put artist I like. And this is what I got. I mean, like her face is messed up. The bow, it couldn't, I mean, this is probably about a year ago now, but the bow is a complete mess.
Well, you know what I love too?
Just
I
it's
love the sensible hijab, but the bare
yeah,
midriff.
yeah.
What?
Um,
And
I mean,
so there, you know what? Honestly, for female fantasy portraits, there should be a checkbox that says realistic clothing and armor. Check. And if you leave that unchecked, you get ridiculous stuff with bare midriffs.
right, you can kick me back out of it now. Because I
Oh
don't
my
scared. I
goodness.
can't seem to unshare my screen.
Oh, I had to do that. Yeah. That's easy. Stop
Um,
sharing.
but see that's one where I think I got 4 credits, and each credit was a like a doing a thing and then evolving it,
Yeah.
and that was it. And then now I'm gonna have to, if I want to do any more, I have to pay for it.
Or you have to create new email addresses to set up.
Yeah, I have to just keep creating new email addresses, or you have to go and you find another website using the same software.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's worth pointing out the orc thing is a perfect example. I was showing all those things earlier on Midjourney, which looked amazing. They were all every single one flawless. And there, I've typed in a relatively straightforward thing. You can imagine what to do. All absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
And so I think there are certain things it struggles to do. So I think one of them is having 2 things. So a portrait is fine, a person's fine. When you start, I want something else. I mean, like I said, the backgrounds on those pictures were really spot on.
Yeah.
The more information you give them, the better. But then when you start asking it to do too much, it can't.
Well, there's more room for interpretation, and that's
Yes.
where, I mean, look, if you were to hand that to an artist, obviously you're not going to get this weird blending of creatures or something unless the artist is on drugs. But anything is open to interpretation. And then the trouble is, and I mean, we see this in all aspects of life. There's this balance between general, which enables flexibility, and rigid, like super detailed and descriptive, which then leads to this like rigidity, and people are like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do because it's overly specific. So I can see where it would complicate things. Now, some of the sites rather that offer this, I looked at, do the same thing. Like you only have so many renders, or you have so many pieces of art in a given time period. Or you're only allowed to use up like so much of the CPU time or its thinking time. And obviously, the more details and descriptors you put in, the longer the thing is going to have to think. So that all makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's fair enough that they're expecting you to pay because you are using server time. There's a programmer sitting there behind that, making sure this all works, and the data people feeding stuff into it.
They got to keep the lights on, literally, because those CPUs use up a lot. I mean, that stuff uses a lot of juice.
Yeah, but then you can see why artists be getting worried, because if this is funneling money away from artists who don't get paid a lot, and the kind of artists who work on fancy art, they're not, a lot of them do stuff in their spare time hoping they'll get commissions. If this is going to take stuff away from them, then fair enough, they're not be good. Right, but let's look at the tech stuff. So the big one everyone talks about is chat. I'm going to get it the wrong way around. It's either chat. Is it GPT or is it
GPT?
GPT. Google now has a new one. Google's one is not as good, so we'll forget about that. The Chat GPT one, it is owned by Microsoft, although they're hiding that reasonably well at the moment. And at the moment, it is free to use. So I signed up a week ago because people have been using it at work. So I got a guy at work who was using it to sort of write exam questions and even get it to write mark schemes for him. And he did like a whole thing to all the staff last week. And I'd seen people starting to use this online, and I thought, well, you must be able to use it for different things. And so I used it last week to create my dungeons. I wanted, I mean, I've shared this with you. I don't know if you actually read it, but I wanted.
You did, yeah. No, I glanced over it, and it was hard to tell what was from where or whatever. But I mean, it was obvious that there was like some coherence to it.
Yeah, it's like I think I literally put in like I want a D&D dungeon. I mean, if I wrote DND and it picked that up as understanding, Dungeons and Dragons, I want a D&D dungeon, or make me a D&D dungeon, which is based in an Egyptian pyramid And I think I started originally with, which is linked to the Egyptian gods, but then it would do each room as a different god, which was clever, but actually that wasn't what I wanted. So then I changed it just on this god. So then so on a particular god. And the initial ones were a bit vague. So then I started thinking, right, the more specific you are, the better it was working. So I want riddles and traps and monsters and puzzles or something for 2 players of level 5. Now, I have done this where it does give you things like actual DCs and damages and stuff. To be honest, you don't need that because it's on the back of the Dungeon Master screen. It has damages and DCs for sort of standard. So that's the kind of stuff I don't really need. But just to kind of it would give me then 10 rooms, and each room would have a description. That's the kind of stuff I'm not very good at. I could have probably asked for it to give me more descriptions, and after you've run it, I could run it again. It would give me more detail, and I could keep cycling through the same thing till it was more what I wanted, because that's the bit. Essentially, I got it to give me. I did this sort of 4 or 5 times, and then I cherry picked the more interesting rooms from the 5 times I ran it through, and used them to create my own sort of hybrid dungeon, which I then tweaked. I then wrote onto this Word document particular things, because some of the puzzle ones, it'd do there are hieroglyphs on a wall of different elements. There are stone platforms on the floor. You have to stand on the stone platforms in the right order to open the door. Well, that's a bit vague. But you could probably, I didn't try ever running it through that again. So would it give me something more interesting?
But so you were taking these vagaries that it spit out and you were adding detail to them.
Yeah. But what I could have done is actually say, well, I like this, but can you add more description, or can you add more stats? And, I've seen people literally go into it and say, make me a level blah, blah, blah character. And, it'll create one. That kind of stuff is
that's interesting, actually,
crazy.
because especially you think about how huge 5e is, and through it D&D and all of its tropes and assumptions as a system is online now. I mean, so much of it, there's just so much that's expressed online. So, that's something to consider with all of these, rather, especially with the chat thing. It has to be online. Where is it going to draw stuff from? I'm going to draw it from your basement.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It takes it online. If the stuff isn't online, it's not there. I mean, I've just done this now. I've literally typed it. It's still going. It's hilarious. I love the way that it does it as if it's thinking about it. And of course, it can do it a lot quicker. I've literally make me a level 5 halfling rogue for D&D 5e. It's given me a name. Obviously, race and class, I already gave it, but it's picked me a background. It's given me ability scores, which skills I'm proficient in. It's given me a whole list of equipment, and it has written out the features and traits. So it actually has the rules for half nimbleness, lucky, brave, the sneak attack rules, and it's got it correct that it's 2d6 at level 5. Fast hand, second story work, cunning action. That's an NPC. I now have an NPC.
There's an NPC.
What you can do is, I think you take that. You can take the existing stuff and add more to it. So I'm going to try. I don't know if it's going to work. Add personality traits to above character. Let's see what it does. Here are some personality traits for Tilly Goodbarrel. It's kept the name that it gave me her. It just knows. Yeah, it's given me a bunch of tricks. Okay, it's getting a bit carried away now. She is mischievous, quick-witted, independent, curious, reckless. I should have given it a how many.
You should have said, don't give me personality traits.
But it's then written. It's written. So here's mischievous. Tilly has a knack for getting into trouble and loves to pull pranks on her companions. So I've now got a bunch of stats I can use, and I've got little personality things. That's a ready-made NPC.
So unfortunately,
I did that while I was talking to you.
So it just spit out like an obnoxious character that a 13-year-old kid would play.
Yeah, I mean, that's one point that I saw someone say. Someone said recently, where it was like, well, wait a minute. Actually, all it's knocking out is something that any GM could come up with. Yeah. But that's the point. It's just a bit of software. It's able to come up with something you could, given time. One of the, this is a perfect example of time zone. Will it, will it replace GMs? We were going to try and do that tonight, or I would have been able to tell you. And it may well have been replacing it, yeah. But yeah, it saves you time.
Right.
And time is one thing that a lot of GMs don't have. Now, if you're a professional GM and then you were using this to make stuff, that's probably not on. But most GMs are not professional GMs. They're GMing for their mates, or they're GMing at a store. And you have a full-time job and you're already spending money on all of the books and all of the other stuff we use. So to have something that can give you a little bit of help,
Yeah.
is really useful.
Okay, I just typed in, I went to chat-gpt.org, and I typed in create a 2D20 Star Trek Adventures character that is a ship science officer, Tellarite, and is also good in engineering.
Did it do it?
Okay, this is a little creepy. This is what it did. It's Joel Peck, which doesn't sound like a very Tellarite name, but whatever. It has control.
I can't even think what a Tellarite is. So
it has its stats. It's got skills. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 6 focuses. Focuses are astrophysics, stellar cartography, stellar phenomena, theoretical physics, warp field dynamics, and diplomacy. It is brilliant. It has technical expertise and team dynamics as its talents. It doesn't have values. Interesting. Was born on Teller Prime, knew from a young age that he wanted to be a scientist, excelled in the studies, was accepted at top, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's the interesting thing. I guess you would have to suss out from this what the actual, like the 2 career events are. It's not clear. Let me ask this. What were his 2 career events? See if it gives me some love there. Oh, it says, as an AI language model, I do not have enough information to determine who are you referring to. Can you please provide more context or details about this person and their career events?
That's pretty good.
But it did spit out a character.
I've tried it to get it to do me a monster in a minute. I also just got to do it. I did create this is a really short, again, the more detail you give it, the better it'll be.
Yeah.
Create a D&D 5e encounter in a forest for 4 level 3 NPCs. Right. It's done an ambush, but it's given a description. Guess which monsters it used as the ambush?
Goblins.
Yeah. But it has put their CR, but it's got terrain, it's got tactics, and it's got rewards, and it's got possible variations. That's better than anything I do. I don't put in tactics for the monsters, and I never remember terrain.
This is interesting, though. Something to consider, and you may be thinking of this with the goblins line. It had to be goblins. Okay. When you and I sit down to create an encounter, okay, a first edition or a first level encounter in a whatever, we call them variables. We have all the different pieces and parts that we can include in an encounter: the monsters, the location, time of year, particular location details, so on and so forth. It's in a forested area on a hill, that's an extra detail. We have all those pieces and parts. Now, whether or not we draw them together in a way that is derivative, like, oh yeah, I remember there was that scene with the Uruk-hai going after the hobbits at the end of the first Lord of the Rings movie. Like, if you envision that forest fight and then you gather together the story variables to recreate something that in your mind is inspired by that, that you could say that's derivative. It's also possible for the human being to come up with something totally original, just you're bringing all these different pieces and parts together. Now, maybe the pieces and parts aren't original. What I wonder, though, with this is, since it's drawing from things that are already, I don't know how this works, but it's like, is it essentially just like going across the web, sucking up everything that seems to have to do with this, and then it's spitting out combinations? Like, is it really creating, or is it just assembling bits and pieces that seem coherent?
My understanding of it is it's being fed things. It's being fed like lots and lots of websites. So if you put things on the web, it will be fed to it. It's not scanning it in real time. It would take too long to search the web and find all this. You think out, Google search isn't that quick. It's being fed stuff. So the more people put stuff on the web, the more of it will do it. I just asked it to create a and Nemesis NPC monster for Conan 2D20 based on a classic horror mummy. I mean, it clearly has got bits of this right because it's got a name. It said it was in ancient Stygia. Now, that's the connection there where it's gone. Mummies are Egyptian. Conan, Stygia is basically Egypt. I didn't tell it. So that it's picked that up from reading on the internet. Its things aren't quite right because it's got like strength, agility, intellect, willpower, and the numbers look about right. But then it's got defense, which isn't right. But it's got sorcery, athletics, resilience, intimidation, awareness. So that, you know, these aren't spot on. And then I asked it to give me some attacks, and then it's done this using D&D type stuff because it's talking about like 2d6 plus 2. But then it's talked about things like the knockbout quality. It says the vicious quality, and it's got mentions the doom pull.
It'd be interesting to go back, and I'm looking at this Tellarite science officer to go back, and I'm sure that, but to go back and make sure that the numbers are correct.
Yeah, but it's, you know, the fact that it's even got 2d20 stuff on there at all. I mean, you know it's going to be better at D&D because there's way more D&D stuff on the internet.
Yep.
But it's, yeah, I mean, it's very, very cool. So certainly, I think our warning to 2d20 users would be like sort of user beware, because I suspect it's going to make more mistakes. There's a lot less 2d20 stuff up there. And again, you have a mass, you know, if it's looking for 2d20, then there's how many 2d20 variations now? At least if you're looking for 5e D&D, well, there's loads of that, and it's just 5th edition D&D. You know, we've got Conan and Infinity. Those rules aren't the same. They're different from Mutant Chronicles, and they're different from all the other ones. So it's going to make more mistakes doing 2d20. But I think it's, you know, just backgrounds and stuff. I mean, this did actually give me tactics for what this guy's going to do, and again, variations. And I could ask it to add more stuff to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally feel like if you were short, I mean, it's like we've said in the past, we quite like those sort of dice rollers that you have on maybe on some of the GM screens for some of the 2d20 stuff. And I've said like Savage Worlds often has a roller, where you're like, oh, I'm short of inspiration, I can roll a bunch of dice. It still ends up being really time consuming. This is just doing that, but with more stuff. And you can't take what it's going to give you and just use as is. But if you're like, well, I don't have 3 hours to plan an adventure this week and write a bunch of characters, this is going to be able to knock some things up. I mean, like I've heard people say things like, you know, you can take information that you've given it and feed that back in to say, oh, like, well, that character I want to take that character and add more information to. I mean, this is why I was interested. I wanted to use this tonight to replace a GM to kind of build an encounter and then tell it what happened in that encounter and see if it could take that and build the next encounter and run with it and tell it who your characters are and see how it would work as like a GM itself. I don't know how well it could work. I just realized it actually saves your chats. It's got my previous chats saved from last time, so I can keep adding to the same chat.
You know,
so
in a way,
try that, but
I could see where, you know, one of the things I like about GMing is I come up with these ideas, and I come up with these characters and settings and plots and all that stuff, and then I huck them at my players, and then my players respond, and it's that I get a creative boost out of stepping back and going, okay, how am I going to deal with that? You know, how do I respond to how do I react to their reaction and still work to develop and improve this story? In a way, I suppose you as a GM could use this as a way to generate ideas, like typing in your ideas, coming up with ideas, and then having them spit back at you in some form. And then you use it as inspiration. You sit back and you think about it and you go, huh. And it's almost like a reaction from a player of a sort to your ideas. And then you go think about it. Yeah, I'm interested now. I'm curious about, I want to learn how to, like, what does it take to use these different things? Because I'm on a few different sites right now.
I mean, it's practice, isn't it? It's the same as anything else. It's practice of, you know, like the amount of times I've seen on a Facebook group where someone has posted some really amazing art, and someone else, and I've done it as well. Well, not I've posted, I've then replied, or other people replied, what things did you type in to get that response?
Yeah.
People just don't reply. Oh, you just need to just practice, or you need to try it yourself. And you think, why don't you tell me? Why don't you just say,
people are lazy, they don't want to think.
This is the things you put in. I mean, it's a cut and paste job. If you're sitting at a PC, you could literally just say, here's my prompt. There you go. people aren't willing to do it because they know actually they probably spent money doing
Maybe.
it properly. I mean, I just looked here. I was curious. How much does it cost for the paid plan for ChatGPT? $20 a month. That's a lot of money. So it's quicker and you always get it's available even when demand is high. You think, wow, well, people aren't going to pay for that. I mean, that's the thing that's going to make or break this. When all of these are paid, people aren't. The whole point is that this is meant to be making things easier and stopping you taking time. The minute you have to pay for it, it's time is money. Well, I'm not going to pay for it. I'll just do it like I've always done it. I'll do it myself. I'll just search the internet for the art. So, obviously they need to make money out of it, but they need to be clever about how they're charging. We're going from this is free, this is $20. Well, that's a big jump, massive jump.
You wonder where that sweet spot is, but that's that's demand and supply. They'll figure that out, and people will figure it out, and there'll be hopefully a handshake in the middle, because it doesn't matter what's out there if people are unwilling or unable to pay for it. It isn't going anywhere.
But yeah, I'm interested to certainly I think this could take a lot of work out of, I struggle to find the time to do it as a GM. It's not just a struggle to find time. I can't be bothered, to be honest. It's laziness as well.
He admits.
So to be able to have something which can do certain work for you, it can't replace a GM, certainly not at the moment. And you've got to know what to put into it to what you want to get out. But as a GM aid, it's great. It's helping you. It's doing things. And if someone, kind of thing, if you had a laptop there, because a lot of GMs, I don't, but a lot of GMs have a laptop there. Someone asks you a question, I'm not sure. Well, you type it into and generate a character on the fly. I mean, chances are most GMs will have a bunch of backup NPCs, unlike me, where they're just all called Bob. They will have that kind of stuff ready in case. Yeah. But if you haven't, then, this is doing. It's not doing your job for you, but it's helping. So it's like other things we talked about. It's a tool. It's a place to go for particularly if you're really struggling with inspiration. You're just having one of those, a writer's block day. It's somewhere you can go that it will give you a bunch of suggestions. Yeah. Which is cool.
Well, let's do this then. When this will go up week after next. This will go up on the 12th of April. And so, yeah, folks, jump in, share your experiences with and your ideas about, and then your thoughts about, we can talk, we can have two, like I said, two parallel conversations about this. And then we'll come back to this in a month or two or three as we've both gotten better at doing it. And then we'll have different experiences and different perspectives to share. Because I think we could talk about, again, those two parallel conversations are worth having. Quick question. Remind me, when you say 7:30, do you mean 6:30 or 7:30?
7:30. Why would I mean?
Okay.
Doesn't.
Well, see,
how would half 7 be half 6?
Because we say half past. Half past 7 would be 7:30.
Yeah, we're just skipping the past out. It's just half 7.
Interesting.
It's just laziness. I need to find our. I think we can add a new. GM's corner.
I think this will do it. I think this will do it for now, and then we can come back, like I said, in a month or three, as as my resistance cell is coordinating with yours to take back the Earth from the from Skynet. How's that?
Yeah, good idea.
Thank you so much for listening. You can visit our show's homepage at anchor.fm/fluffncrunch. That's FLUFFNCRUNCH. We would really appreciate feedback and reviews on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to this on. Thanks so much.